Fez, what's your pick?
Pick Atlanta Falcons under 8.5.
Ooh, dog.
I'm going to keep this simple. So
Does that mean a lack of prep?
Yeah. All right. So let's say we're pulling out one ping pong ball from a big ping pong ball container.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. And the ping pong balls are different colors.
Yeah, they're red and they're blue.
Red and blue. Okay, it's like America.
Yes.
All right. No whites, no blacks, red and blue. All right, I got it.
But there's a few more blues than reds.
All right, so there's something intrinsic that makes blue more likely.
That's right.
Now, you got to pick, is this next pool going to be red or blue?
It's going to be blue. I'm only going to pick blue, even though there's going to be some times that it's probably smart to bet red. If all things being equal, look towards blue because in the long run, that's where it's going to be easier to find value.
So let's extend the analogy because what could be a factor that would ever make it worth doing red if there was more blues? Well, let's say for the sake of argument that we would expose every other ball that came out so you would know its color. So in theory, you could do a countdown and say, almost like counting from a deck in blackjack, right?
Exactly.
You could say, let's adjust what I think the count is, but we're not showing every ball because
it's
then
a
you
great example.
Yeah.
So imagine we had a deck of cards and we put 2 extra aces in there. All right, and I got to bet, is it going to be a high card, ace being high, or a low card? Well, all things being equal on any one card, I want to bet it's going to be a high card because there's 2 extra aces. But as I'm counting down the deck, there's going to be situations where now the low cards are going to be the better bets.
Yeah, so you're saying all things equal, you want to go with the odds effectively. You want to be the house effectively. Really, the house doesn't care. Listen, the bookmakers are not good handicappers. If they were, some are good. Very few, if any, are great. Because if they were great, they'd probably be betting. Because it's a lot easier life to bet if you're great. Now, if you're not great, it's a hard life. Right, so a lot of bookmakers, right? Yeah. A lot of bookmakers are good, but they'd rather be on the counter. They got to win 47.5 or 47.6% of the time instead of 52.4%.
This is a really strong point. So, like the 20 greatest sports betting people in the world, probably 18 of them are sports bettors. Because if you were a bookmaker, you'd say to yourself, "Well, I'm one of the greatest people." Absolutely in the world. I can make more money betting than just being employed as a bookmaker.
Now, I would make the case offshore. I would say a guy like the Greek at Old Olympic, those guys were truly great. Some of them were great bettors, but since they could operate offshore, and again, they were willing to go gray with that. They were willing to not come back to the United States, whatever came with it, right? Some got arrested. But from what I understand, and I'll say allegedly, and we'll see when his book comes out, Billy Walters and Spiro, right,
yes,
is the name that he went by. I don't have any great knowledge into this, but and again, allegedly, there was a lot of shenanigans that went on where Olympic would put up a certain number, being willing to get lopsided because it would make other people put up a certain number, and then that number goes up, and then allegedly someone like Billy Walters, let's say, would bet it, and there was a lot of stuff going on. Are you not asking to get too detailed, Fez, but you have some insight into this?
I do not. Well, the only insight I have is I was at Pinnacle for a while.
Yeah.
And so we would see the shenanigans that would occur at some books where we would see a curious line move where a Grande or somebody it seemed like all the sharp money was coming in on the favorite, and then Grande would like deal lower on it just for like a couple hours. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we were at Pinnacle, we'd be like, let's go from 5 down to 4. But let's keep showing 5 on the screen. Even though if someone actually tried to make the bet against us, well, they had to bet against 4. Mm-hmm. But on the screen, we still showed 5 because we didn't want to give that information away yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, Henry's the name from Pinnacle that was famous back in the day, and you were working with Henry directly.
Absolutely.
And
great guy.
Yeah. So I've never met Henry, but the now he's been retired like what, 5 or 6 years?
I lost track with him. Yeah,
I think so. That's at least I think I'm right about that. But anyway, the reality is, if you were willing to be an operator and run wild offshore, you could do a lot of things as a bettor / bookmaker, right? Effectively.
Yes.
Now, there's been various bettors that try to open up books here in town. I think Jimmy the Greek had a book here. Did he? Yeah. I mean, this would have been the 70s, but it's interesting. It's like, in a way, I value betting more than bookmaking, but the skill set of bookmakers is distinct, and the good ones are very much better than the not good ones. I mean, I might say cockroaches, but it does take a skill to do that really well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, especially if you're the one that's going to stick their neck out and put the world openers out
Yes.
when nobody else does,
And
like Johnny Avello did with the college football on Sunday mornings. I always was impressed
When he was
by
at the
that.
Win.
Yes.
And then sometimes he was the world opener. He was always the Vegas opener.
Yes.
And we've seen like the Golden Nugget do that with the Game of the Year odds years ago. Now it's got, and then South Point started kind of doing it early, and now it's like everyone's putting stuff up almost instantly.
The race to market has gotten
which
fast
I like.
and furious.
It's competition.
People want to say they're first. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I actually had a NASCAR pick. I gave Fez. I said, Fez, I want. And then somehow what happened, Fez? Someone got suspended?
In
or something?
Group A, there's 4 drivers. They're all paired against each other. And one of the 4, Chase Elliott, got suspended.
But it wasn't the guy I was picking.
Right, but it put the kibosh on betting on his group.
Did we see how he did against those 3? Did you check?
No.
All right, so I sent that to you. You know, I actually have it in my notepad. I want to see. You think it won? I think I was plus 180.
I don't know who's going to be in his group, so I wouldn't.
I'm
be able
saying,
to.
but what I'm not asking you to handicap the NASCAR. I'm saying, do you think I would have won? You're handicapping me.
I would say you had a 45% chance to win, and you're trying to bet plus 230.
It was plus 230. Okay. I'll tell you, Mackenzie, to look this up in a second.
This was this past race?
Yeah.
Okay, so who is your bet?
Oh, you got it? Okay.
I got the results,
So
yeah.
the theory is this one guy would have to beat the other 2. So those odds would have went down, right? I mean, obviously, if it was a 3-person group.
So it would have been like plus 180.
So is that how they bet? Is that how you bet NASCAR? They give you like a group of 4. You pick
No,
who
that's
thinks
one of
will
the
finish
ways. You can
highest?
bet outrights. You can bet top 5, top 10,
Oh,
top 20.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's like golf. Like you could bet him to win the race, but you could also bet him
Correct.
to just beat this group. Okay.
So, do you bet NASCAR?
No.
Okay. You just know.
I've talked about it before.
I hear
for big races.
Okay. All right. So, Fez, you had it in my text to you, right? So, the guy I wanted
Was Kay Larson.
Okay.
Kyle.
So,
Kyle Larson.
all right, so how'd he do?
Kyle Larson finished 4th.
All right. So, wait, there's 2 guys left. They just can't be first, second, or third, Fez. Go ahead.
Hamlin and Truex.
Martin Truex finished 5th.
Oh,
So
close call.
yeah, Kyle Larson beat him. Denny Hamlin finished 2nd though.
Thanks, Fez. Thanks for not batting that for me.
And Kyle
Chase
Busch,
Elliott maybe for getting suspended.
Kyle Busch beat Denny Hamlin in overtime.
It's funny, now that I'm winning so much with Fez, he likes the info, but he doesn't seem to get the bets down as quick.
Hey,
It's kind of weird.
You cannot fault me on this. There was a $200 limit
know,
at Westgate, and I hauled my ass over
Well, you were
to
going
the
anyway
property.
to load up, you said. You didn't go just for that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it.
But I may have blown it off otherwise. Yeah,
Well, see, you probably won money betting that.
I actually did.
See?
So it worked out.
All right. Actually, by the way, I'm going to have I think we all got some, or at least a couple of us got something on the NBA Game 3 finals.
Yes.
I certainly do. All right. We had a nice winner last week on the I guess I gave the third quarter out in Game 1, if I remember. I was the only pick. But then on Straight Out of Vegas, when Wally wasn't there, I said, it was actually Scott came up with the idea, hey, I think one of these parlays, these same game parlays is going to work. We hashed it out over like 15 minutes, came up with one that was about even money. Then we had the other one that was paying what, like 7 or 8 to 1?
With the straight up without the alternates?
Yeah, but plus we were going to go on laying the point spread
330.
too.
Yes.
Plus 330.
Oh, yeah, it was plus 330 was the one that we were doing.
And both
the
of
one
them.
plus 330 was just without the alternate lines.
But Scott wanted to slam in the third quarter to turn it.
I
into
wanted
1.
that was the one that was 7 to 1,
Okay.
and then you were like, all right, you're getting a little.
Well, I can see the correlation, right? So,
you're like, you're getting a little ridiculous here now.
but they all won.
Yes.
Everyone won. So,
Yeah, so when Denver wins, Jokic goes under, and when Miami loses, then Jimmy Buckets goes under, I believe, was
Yes.
the logic.
and it was Mackenzie that at least internally first came up with that correlation, and we looked at it, and it looked like it made sense. And we actually have a second bet. We got a good bit in the NBA. First, though, we got Fez's pick that we just went over.
And I'm drawing out a blue marble.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right, I want a blue marble. What's a blue marble? Well, over a 17-game season, the average NFL team should be lined at 8.5, right? Because the teams will win half the games. Not so. A little bit less because chance of ties, only a 10-minute overtime period, really should be more like 8.44.
All right, so let's think about that. So how many wins can you expect from the average team? Well, how would you ascertain that? You would take all the wins in the league, divide by the number of teams. Now, why isn't it 8.5? Because that would be the mathematics if every game had a resolution. All right. Well, some games don't. What's the over-under usually? 1.5 for tied games?
Yeah.
All right, so let's assume. Now, I personally probably am going to make one of my bigger bets on the year on one of those sides. If you're a long-time listener, you know. If not, you're going to have to wait for me to make it official. But if we assume 1.5, you're saying now 8.44 would be the split out of it's a little less than 8.5 because there are ties that aren't wins, right?
Yes. I'm not sure if I assumed exactly 1.5, but it's close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now 8.44. So what is the red versus blue in this case?
Because the odds makers have the average currently at 8.56. And this makes sense because there's a bias. Public likes to bet on overs. The odds makers know this, and frankly, the public's already betting, so they get overly ambitious and happy about their team.
8.56.
8.56. So the difference between blue and red, if you will, is that the number should be 8.44, and it's actually 8.56. That sounds trivial, that 0.12 difference, but that's actually like 12 extra cents of VIG in your favor if you're playing unders versus overs.
Now, that's going to be for all teams. Now, here's the thing I don't agree with this. It's the same reason for years you said you don't like to play any futures, but then we showed you maybe you were wrong about that. If you shop for this, do you believe every market, every pool, not every market, but every individual pool at each individual book is all going to be biased in the same way?
No, but currently they are, because I put in the Westgate and the DraftKings numbers and the Circa numbers, and all three of them spat out 8.
But you're only betting one team at a time.
Yes.
So there might be one team that got hit by some guy at 7-Eleven.
Absolutely. So I'm only talking the aggregate.
If you're playing the market price, this is applicable. If you're able to come off the market through shopping, then it's not necessary.
Exactly right. So in this case, maybe I haven't done all my work yet, so I'm going blue. I'm going with the positive expectation teams, and further,
which is going to be unders.
Unders.
All right. Real quick, I have one quick question here. Let's talk about the idea of being off at an individual book. So right now, let's say the market is actually on the Jags is 10 flat. Mm-hmm. You're saying if you had to force blind bet that, there's about 12-cent edge betting under, you would expect if that's the market price. But if there was...
I'd actually say, the way I'd say would be there's a 2-cent edge going under and a 22-cent disadvantage going over.
Net, okay.
Net, yes. You spoke it correct. I'm just trying to,
All right, so now, if one of these outs had a 9.5 over 30, which is effectively 10 under 20, right? Because it's about 50 cents in between half games.
I know I've always used that. I'm revising my estimate downward.
Okay, so you're saying now that each half game is worth less than you had thought is what you're now suspecting. Why do you suspect that?
Because if I look at the results, if you had done nothing but bet alternative totals, where you get one win the worst of it, playing both overs and unders, you actually have
It was exactly one win in these cases?
The alternative totals are always one. Yes.
Well, that's not true. I mean, DraftKings right now has like 5 or 6.
Right, but in this study they used the one win.
All right. So they're saying if you just assumed and played. Now, were you playing blind at this point?
Play blind overs and blind unders.
Okay. So now that would, in theory, that would tell you the intrinsic hold for the pricing that they gave.
Exactly, and you actually turn a profit.
Okay.
In aggregate, playing all the alternatives overs or unders. So there's been enough variance that getting that jumbo payout, that plus 190 on these alternative payouts, has made you money.
Now, I've seen something similar to that, but what it was about wasn't it was a mispricing. Now, let's think about this. What if we know what the distribution of results is going to be? Then you price accordingly. So really the question becomes, are we right about the distribution, or are we wrong about that? That's option one. Or maybe we're right about it, but somehow we're mispricing the correct distribution. I think that there's something analogous, which is half points in sports, in normal games, where you've talked often about how if you can buy a bunch of half points, each one becomes worth a different amount. So do you want to explain that?
Yes. So it's a great example. So if you start out an NBA game, right, and you got a 7-point favorite, and now you buy a half point, you get to minus 6.5.
All right, so that's costing you a dime. It's probably not worth a dime.
Probably not worth the minus 120. But then let's just keep going. Let's buy it.
I only say probably because 7 is amongst the numbers that are worth more. But
yes.
For NBA.
Yes. But then I go to minus 6, minus 130.
So are we going up or down? I thought you went to 7.5.
I'm buying points to half points. So I'm going down.
All right.
I'm going down with the favorite. And then we go to minus 5.5, lay 40. And then we go to minus 5, lay 150. And guess what? Each progressive half point that I'm only being charged 10 cents for, I'm starting to get bargains on.
All right. So the value of those half points increase.
Yes.
Why?
It's because the difference between where we started, remember, we started laying minus 110 and then we lay 120. That's a big difference between laying 110 and 120.
Oh, so this is the same reason there's a break point in baseball. As you get up to 160, 170, people don't give you a dime line.
Right. But by the time I get to minus 150, I got to be right 60% of the time, right? And then I go to minus 160. It's not that much of a difference in terms of minus 150 versus minus 160. So once I start buying points, half points. I want to keep buying them as long as I can keep buying them for 10 cents, and eventually it becomes a bargain.
So if you look at a 10-cent dime line in baseball at minus 110 plus 100, or you look at it minus 170 plus 160, I think it's about half as the actual intrinsic hold is about half.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why the dastardly cockroach bookie doesn't want to deal with that.
Seems fair.
And if I take
they
this,
don't want to.
And so if I take this to the ultimate extreme, I just keep buying half points all the way down to minus 1 late 210 or minus a half, minus 220. Think about that. Minus 220 for a 7-point favorite. That's woo doggy. That's a cheap money line.
So what's the typical money line on that?
It'd be much more like minus 280.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So the chance. So that's a great. So that's an example. The distribution's understood. The pricing is off.
Yes.
Right? So there's two possibilities that were wrong when it came to that profitable alternative lines back to the win totals now. And you're suspecting it's the pricing. Maybe it was the distribution, though.
But I know I always look at Circa's and other books when they offer game in each direction, and they always move it like 100 cents, which think about it. So 50 cents is a half game, then 100 cents should be a little bit more, but 100 cents for a full game should be right if our intrinsic assumption of half a game is worth 50 cents is correct. And that's why I'm saying I think 50 cents is too high.
Okay, now let's think about this a second, though. When you bet this, so we're talking about 2 half games here. If we're talking about a study that had a 1-game variance, so if the over/under was 8, they're looking at the payout on 7 and the payout on 9.
Yes.
Right? Is the second half game worth the same amount, less or more than the first half game?
It's certainly worth more in terms of cents.
Now, why would that be?
It's the idea. If I start out with a 50% bet and each progressive half point gets
half game in this
half
case.
Game makes it like eventually it become impossible to lose. Like if I can buy enough half points, then I'm going to win 100% of the time. If a team's lined at 8.5 and I can buy 17.5 points, I win because then I'm all the way to 0.
Okay, but that's showing you. So what you're saying is being 1 half game away and. Or 1 half game or 2 half games, which is a game. You're saying that the difference in what's remaining almost being 0, which is not. The theory, let's say a game is a team is 7.5. So now there's no ties.
Yes.
Right? In this, so now the theory is that 50% of the results are expected to be over 7.5, 50% are supposed to be under 7.5.
Yes.
Let's say you're betting under, so we're doing alternative totals, let's say going upwards. So let's say we want to move it to 8 and then to 8.5. All right.
Right.
So your under gets better. All right. So at 7.5, the odds of going over or under are 50-50.
So let's go all the way to 8.5. Be cleaner. So the chance that was
so two half games.
So under 8.5 should win approximately if 2/3 of the time, right? But we're
2/3.
Yeah, because I'm getting to minus. Now it's going to get priced. If I move it 100 cents, the under 8.5 is going to become minus 200, right?
Okay. Yes.
And plus 200. I'm going to go no vig here.
All right.
All right. So that's saying
is 1 out of 3 or 2 out of 3 is plus 200.
Right. So that's saying that I'm going to win 66.6% of the time.
This is assuming this is kind of maybe circular logical because we're assuming that there's equilibrium in the market and this is being priced right at 100 cents.
That's true. So this is implying that there's an 8.3% chance that a 16% chance, that lands exactly on 8. And boy, that seems high, doesn't it? Doesn't that seem high that 16.6% of the time a team's going to land right on their integer?
I agree with you. I'm not sure the combination of all this should be. That seems high, doesn't it? So here's what I think. This is what I've done unfairly for you. We didn't plan on talking about this. So why don't we do this? Let's give it 2 weeks because we got a lot of stuff going on here. Is in 2 weeks from now, we'll actually have the numbers and break this down.
Yes.
But your thought now is that your guess is it's worth, or let's say your educated guess is it's worth less than the 50 you used to think a half game was worth.
Yes, a little less than 50 cents. I think just under 45 cents would be what my best estimate, back of the envelope estimate is.
So,
right
Scott,
now.
you want to eyeball one of these and maybe look at the various, a couple of them and see what DraftKings is doing?
So we want to look at his Falcons?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so the
one game difference. Let's look at the one game difference.
I only have the 2 game difference. I don't have the 1 game
Okay,
difference.
that's
Let's
fine.
do that. All right.
If you want, I'll pull up Circa's 1 game difference.
Let's just do it here. We got it because this is what we're using to grade.
So the 2 game difference here, the 8.5 is unders minus 130.
Mm-hmm.
Under 6.5 now becomes plus 290.
Okay.
Under 10.5
Well, okay.
minus 330.
All right. Okay.
So that's the 2 games in either direction of the
so
under.
it looks like the same in both directions.
You want to look at the over side?
Yeah. Well, no, Fez, you got those numbers?
Well, the 10.5 is clean because of like what we just said, if we move 1 game, it's 100 cents.
Mm-hmm.
If we move 2 games, they're making it 200 cents.
All right. So they're
doing it linear.
all right. So they're doing 100 cents a game.
Yes.
So you're saying, under your theory, you're saying that you would almost want to blind bet these because they're giving you well, let's think about this. They're charging you 100 cents to move.
They're moving 50 cents per half game, and I
Mm-hmm.
think they should only move 44 cents. So they're encouraging me to play the long shot.
Yes. Because
I like the long shot.
Yeah, the theory is they're pricing it and they're making it too expensive each half game. So you might as well take the benefit of their pricing by taking the if you're betting under, you want to go under a lower number that gives you a plus
Yes,
payout.
you want the jumbo.
Okay. All right. Now, let's bring this back around. There's another reason those ping pong balls might be different colors, and that's something to do with home and away, right? So why don't you finish that part, and then we'll move on to the next page.
Yeah, so each year we alternate AFC, NFC. One conference gets 9 home games, other gets 8. This year, the NFC only gets 8. So I want to target NFC teams to go under because think about it. Now you can say, well, wait a minute, Fez, that's all built into the strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not because the strength of schedule, every person that I've ever seen calculate just says, here's your 17 opponents, and they calculate their strength of schedule. But really, that extra road game is a disadvantage for the NFC teams. It's not reflected in the strength of schedule.
Okay, but there's different ways to do strength of schedule, right? Now, the theory is one of them that people do now is that they look at win totals, right?
Yes.
So
This year's win totals, yes.
the win total, yes, not prior results, but the bettable win totals that Vegas puts out. Okay, so now the win totals in theory is the sharpest sharps in the market setting the price with their bets. And thus, for a given team, it's going to account for them having an extra home game in theory, right?
Yes.
That's why I actually think anything that's intrinsic to the schedule creates a flaw in using the win total. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, when the Saints had one of the Hurricanes come through recently and they had to play a game, it was against Green Bay, I remember, in Florida. Remember, like in week 1 or 2, a couple years ago? Yep. Okay. Let's say it was Katrina, instead it was years before that, and they were going to have to play.
They played in San Antonio that year.
Some of the games they did.
Yeah.
They played 4. I actually have gone through and found every non-home field since 1999 by hand because we're doing a pretty serious database work. So
you got champagne in there?
No, once the project is done, Mackenzie, is when I drink, not during.
No, Champagne's Illinois. Yeah.
Champagne? No, for what game?
The Bears played there. I was a ball boy down there. Yeah.
But was that before 99?
No, Soldier Field was renovated maybe 2005, 2004.
You were a ball boy for the Washington team. You were a ball boy for the Bears.
The Broncos played the Bears. Yeah.
Okay, all right. No, okay. Was it a preseason game?
Yes.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Not
How did I know
it is.
that? How did I know that? Yeah, in the game in Canada, it was on the 80-yard field. That's different.
To quote Smokey and the Bandit, that's just not germane to the situation.
Well, but it's for him. If his name's in it, it's germane always. Do you know one of the Saints that year played one of their home games?
MetLife Stadium.
MLFs. What's that?
MetLife Stadium.
MetLife.
Yes,
Giants
exactly.
Stadium,
You knew that? All right, see? He's on it. Anything New York, he knows it.
He knows.
All right. So, Fez, one, I guess I'm saying, let's say someone just added up all a team's point spreads for the year. Right? Would that be, I guess that, but see, that's circular too, because you'd have to know their strength of schedule in order to assess that. It seems like all these strength of schedules are flawed. The current version.
Yes, yeah, none of them, because it's much more complex, to do it completely 100% correct. Some people they take shortcuts.
But I think that this is a bigger issue. The point I was going to make about the Saints is if we knew that the Saints had Katrina type that they had to be on the road the whole year, their win total would be adjusted downward. They'd say they have these oppressive factors that are making them win less games, correct?
Yes.
All right. So if you said that win total represents the truth of the Saints, and that's what we're going to use to say how good the teams are, the schedules of the teams they play are, one of the factors will be how good the Saints are. There's going to be a valuation of the Saints that is much different than the truth.
Yes.
Because there's external factors. I think there's significant external factors in every NFL team in a given year.
Oh, I agree.
Thus, you could hope they all even out, but
ideally you'd go through and you'd actually look at the power rating of their 17 opponents and where the games were all being played.
But
to
then
do it
you
properly.
got to try. But the theory is that they don't do power ratings is people trust the Vegas perspective more than they do any power rating. But there's no clean Vegas perspective on how good a team is.
Yes.
You could even say when you have the imputed Vegas lines or Vegas power ratings based upon minimizing by that power rating that's imputed, they call it the mean square error of all the season-long spreads. But that too let's think about that a second. That is going to assume you're playing the teams you're playing, and it doesn't have a power rating adjustment in it either.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, strength of schedule adjustment. Yeah. I'm going to have to think about it. But you're right. If you had a power rating that you really trusted, that would be the way to do it.
So coming all the way back,
yeah.
To circle back to the blue, I feel that if I bet all the NFC teams under, I'm going to do better than betting all the AFC teams under, because I don't think the market, although they might reflect slightly the fact the AFC has the more home games, it's not being reflected enough. By the way, I think this is true in college football when there's an unbalanced conference schedule also. Like when the team plays 9 conference games and 4 on the road, I always feel like that's true in college also, that they never weight that enough.
Next week, AJ is going to be hitting us with some stuff on the last season of some of these conferences being the way they are and the way they've been. We're going to say goodbye to some big games, probably.
Probably so.
You're going to be. Is that why you're trying to get in touch with your feelings so much?
Maybe so. Here's my question. So Fez is doing under 8 on Atlanta.
8.5, wasn't it?
8.5.
Oh, is it?
So you like it even less?
Well, I mean, the sheet said 8, which
Oh, so what do we have? What do we have right now at DraftKings?
8.5 unders minus 130.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what the sheet says.
Okay.
It's just whatever the pricing. So we should.
I'm
make
new
sure
to the
we say
game,
That every,
so-
Yep.
okay.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So give us the pricing right now. I know we went over it a little bit.
Under 8.5 minus 130, the over plus 110, and then alternate lines we went over under 6.5. So if it goes extreme, it's plus 290.
Okay. So there's no 1/2 point or 1 pointers. It jumps
It
straight
goes
to
2. Yep. And then we can go from 6.5 to 4.5 if, like AJ says, they win only 4 games. That's plus 800.
All right, here's the answer. And if anyone has a problem with it, I'll meet you out back. Oh, wait. No, we'll talk about it if you do. Okay. Looking around here, let's talk about it. All right. Violence isn't the answer, AJ. I don't know if you heard that or not. So what DraftKings is doing, they've got every game on a half win. There's no 8 wins. There's no 9 wins because they're adjusting the money line. They're fine with that, right? Okay. And we're fine with it. But then the first alternative spread or alternative win total is 2 games away. So using Atlanta, for example.
Yep. We have the under 8.5 is minus 130.
And that's the number that's closest to the market.
That's the market number. Yep. Or their market number. Under 6.5.
So 2 whole games. All right. So
would be plus 290.
So here's what I think we should do. If it's anywhere in between there, which is going to be 1 game different, right? We split the difference in the difference between the market payout and wherever you missed, but you're in between.
We're going to prorate. Yes.
Prorate it, but it's going to be 50%. Every proration is going to be 50%.
Yes.
Yeah. And if they go in the other direction, so the 10.5 would be the next number. Under 10.5 is minus 330. So if they win.
So remember, we're taking the no vig there.
Yes. So
if they win 10, then there'll be an adjustment made.
correct. So you have
Which
to
will be
figure out.
halfway between the 8.5 and the 10.5 number.
Yes.
All right, so here's what I want. Mackenzie, I want you to look at Atlanta, and I want you to give me the payoff if it's 1 game over, 2 games over, right? No vig, 1 game under, 2 games under. What are the odds he gets this right?
65%.
All right.
85. I trust
Okay.
his math.
All right. So how about this? 85. So that's what? Let's think about 15. 6 to 1. All right. So you give me plus 550?
Oh, what?
I'm saying no. I'm saying he will.
You're saying
he's
he will
going to give
not
us
get this
4
right.
numbers and one will be incorrect.
Oh, he's got to go 4 for 4.
Yes.
Yeah. He's got to really go 5 for 5 because he's got to get the starting number right as well.
Oh, he's got to get the no vig there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That 85 is high.
You like my number?
I don't like
you like my 65?
I like
He's
80.
favored.
I was good about
He's favored to get it right.
I don't know. Because here's the thing. He's a smart guy. He is. But he's got dyslexia. And you would think, I think he randomizes it if he actually inverts it or not. Mackenzie, what do you think your odds are?
66%, somewhere in there.
See, notice he said 666, and no matter how you invert those, it's the same number.
One thing is that he can eyeball it, and if he makes a
Why are you laughing silently?
If he makes
Tis
makes
because
a
I didn't
clear-
want to. He was talking.
if he makes a clear math error, he's going to look at it and say, "Wait a minute, these numbers obviously
think that, wouldn't
they've got to be fairly linear." So
You would think that, wouldn't
right?
you?
So he's got a natural check on every one of it. If he just makes one mistake on the 5 numbers, he'll catch it before he releases it.
I tell you this. I think he's gone to at least 50% now because he's going to triple check it. If we didn't mention it and somehow telepathically made the bet, I was sitting pretty sweet at plus 200.
I
How
also
the
think
hell is Atlanta at 8.5? Come on, Atlanta's a well below. I know they got a cupcake schedule. They're a well below average team.
You're missing a key point here. There's a lot of optimism with that quarterback. And I mean, here's the thing. When a team makes Atlanta's won more games. I would say the team that's won the most games over what they should have won in the last 2 years is Atlanta. Atlanta probably think about it, Fez. I bet if you look at your power ratings versus stacked wins, Atlanta was they were almost a 500 team. I think they won 8 games both years, right? Can you look that up?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, Atlanta was a bottom quartile team a lot of
7 and 10 last year.
They were 7-10 last year. And what were they the year before?
7 and 10.
Okay. I mean, some people had Atlanta as one of the 3 or 4 worst teams 2 years ago, not this year as much. They were running over this most recent year.
Sure.
So to me, if they wanted to tank, they would have been tanking. Like, it's not like there's any reason to tank now because they got 2 really elite offensive players in theory that are now entering their 3rd year and 2nd year.
And they drafted
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, so
arguably
I
the
mean,
best.
this feels like the time they're going to try hard. I think this shows optimism with the quarterback.
I think you nailed it. It's all about the quarterback. If the quarterback can play like an above-average quarterback, I'm going to lose.
Because if Atlanta had an average quarterback, 8.5 assumes a purely average team. They're better than an average team if all quarterbacks were equal, wouldn't you think? They ran the ball like really well last year.
And their backup.
I think they're an
They
average
covered their
team.
first 6 games last year.
I don't like Pitts. I don't. I mean, everyone talks about it like he's a great,
But he's in theory he takes gravity away and other players.
Yeah, in theory, I never see him do anything.
Their backup is Taylor Heineke, who
It's a pretty good backup.
Serviceable.
I mean,
Yeah, but that means they're starting 2-5.
well,
Well, I'm just saying,
Or injury.
if everything, if
or
you
injury.
don't believe the rookie, he shows he's not a rookie anymore, but he shows signs that he's not capable of being the starter. They have a perfectly capable backup.
look, he actually went to Excel. I mean, I've never seen him be this detailed before.
Here's why, like McKinsey knows.
66%, I'm telling you.
McKinsey knows that if one of us had bet you on this, he would have known to throw the game because you would
Yeah,
have.
it would have had to be a silent. I mean, you're right. You're right. All right. Now, is Viglis?
I have a concern.
Yeah, I do too. But Viglis has a dash in it, doesn't it? Viglis isn't a word.
Here's my concern.
All right.
How can 7.5 be minus 212? 9.5 is plus 206. Those numbers are really close together. 206 and 212 are really close together.
The old number lines.
And-
so
and-
what we're saying, hold on a second. Well, hold on a second. What we're-
86 apart in both ways. What do you mean?
He's saying 86 apart in both ways, Fez.
If I only look at the minus 212 and the plus 206,
Okay.
I would expect that the 8.5 has to be like minus 105, not plus 120.
Oh, my God. You know something? I have a choice right now. We're back. We took a second, 20 minutes. I got to be honest with you. This could be, as a mentee, no, I'm the mentor, I guess, with Mackenzie.
Yeah.
All right. As a mentor, I am so proud of Mackenzie.
After
me-
willing to lay 5-1 that he was wrong?
No, I wasn't. I was willing to take
5-1. Yeah.
Well, first off, I would have collected that bet well before we got to this point. I would have accepted. No one would have thought. We went through, and this is the honest.
All decisions are final.
I mean, actually, I probably would have just done this. And again, I just let the board dictate.
Ladies and gentlemen, please hold all tickets. The stewards have posted the inquiry sign.
All right. So literally, Fez is going, here's how this can't be right. Blah, blah, blah. I go, Fez, we're not recording. Just figure the math of it. So he starts figuring it. He gets one thing. I figure it. I get another. Mackenzie's just trying to do like a stenographer, trying to do what we're saying. Finally, I said, all right, print this out. Give me 5 minutes of silence. So I talk through it. And it says, all right, this, blah, 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 minus 120, blah, blah, blah. I go, okay, this is what I think it is. I go, the over, or if it's more points than you think, or games, I guess, it'd be minus 206.25. And if it's less, plus 212.5. I'm like, we got it. I wish I was right my first thought, but I was. Okay. Then Scott says, you know something? That's what Mackenzie had to start with. So 20 minutes we were trying to figure it out. We got what we were sure was the answer, and it was his original number that no one thought had any chance of being right.
Where's your conquering hero music, like the Matador music? I feel like that's what Mackenzie should get right.
I mean, I was thinking of retiring right in the middle of the pod, so I didn't have to say that. I think that is,
Mackenzie's the MVP right now of this episode.
And if we start now, but you know what's funny? He was real what would you call it? Unruly during it.
Well, because he was mad you guys were questioning his math.
No. It wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was he was so sure he was wrong, and he was sad.
You think?
Yes.
I don't know.
Mackenzie, what was it?
I was pretty sure I was wrong.
See. Here's
When
what.
Fez and you disagree, I've rarely been
And
right.
I do think that's part of it. Is like.
But we never had.
You guys are always right.
We never had the same numbers though.
And that maybe
the minute we had the same numbers is when we agreed.
that threw me into a loop. Both of you were off.
I've never given this to Mackenzie. He deserves it.
No doubt.
But some would say, and I'm not saying me, but some would say, not me, that it's sadder he had the right number but gave up on it so quick.
This is
Yeah, but some
like Pavlov's dog. Like you've just
I've proven that I'm
you've
usually
trained him to believe that like
I'm right.
RJ says I'm right. Oh, RJ's right.
So maybe I'm wrong now. And this is all pomp and circumstance about nothing.
I don't know.
We'll never know.
I'm just glad he got it right.
Here's the sad thing: we got to do this math on every one of these. Fez, I think we reevaluate. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't do the game. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a macro in Excel to do this.
I think wait on the macro because I think DraftKings will come out with all these alternative numbers soon enough, and we can have them do it for us.
Shouldn't we look with the macro and see if there's any areas to exploit?
Sure.
Right? Because it seems to me we should be. I mean, like the under seems like a blind play here just because of what looks like mispricing.
The under 6.5 because you're getting that jumbo plus 290 payout. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And somehow that is what you took advantage of, but didn't even know it.
That's a blind squirrel finds an acorn.
Oh, yes. Mackenzie, do me a favor. I want to see on my pick, because I'm not too happy about this, because I was trying to go all overs, but if DraftKings is screwing you out the ass on the payout, well, if they're making it public, it's fair. It's just, so we're the 40% VIG win future pools, I guess. It followed state law or whatever. Next up, because it was his honored show now, again, I don't understand it, but it happened. Mackenzie, what do you got?
Let's go back to the Atlanta Falcons.
Whoa, wait a minute. You got the same thing as Fez?
Yes, and we did a blind test.
Were you talking Atlanta under before, though?
I did not.
All right. Okay, so give us your different rationale.
You guys said it. It all comes down to the quarterback, and there is some weird optimism coming out of Atlanta that I just don't understand. Desmond Ridder came in from Mariota and was worse. We tracked 35 backup quarterbacks that came in. He was 18th. Skylar Thompson was better. Mike White was better. He's just not showing any signs.
How about Trey Lance?
Trey Lance, let's see here. Trey Lance was worse.
Okay, but now how old is Ridder? Because that's what's important. How young
he
you are.
looks like 45.
Like Peeve. All right. So his analysis is you guys said it. Anything on top of that?
NFC unders. I don't know if you guys know this, but
All right, that was pretty
You know,
good.
Atlanta does have an international game this year
Instead of a home game or instead of a road game?
instead of a home game, so it's 8-8.
oh, awesome.
No,
Well,
I
you
thought
mean
the
instead of a road game,
NFC
then.
had less home games this year.
Yeah, well, it's
So
it
they
just
only have
says
7 true home games?
no. They have 8. They have 8 home games, 8 road games, and 1 international game.
Okay, so it's not. So it's instead the
it's one of their
international
road games.
instead of the road game.
I think
But
the
it
NFL
says versus. It doesn't say at.
the NFL did an excellent job of when AFC plays NFC, they designated the AFC as the home team when it was overseas. So they did do a good job with that.
But that would be less of a disadvantage for those NFC teams.
Yes.
So really, effectively, it's an advantage for Atlanta over typical NFC teams, but not enough for you not to like the under.
That's right.
All right. All right.